Welcome to this Facebook Live session from the Resource 2018 conference in Amsterdam. Now here we're talking to Edouard Neviaski from NG Global Energy Management. Edouard, fantastic to talk to you. My name's Sonia Dunlop. I'm Senior Policy Advisor at Solar Power Europe. Great to have you here on the platform. So I wanted to start, you were at the Resource Conference last year in Brussels, the first ever Resource Conference. Here we are in Amsterdam, it's bigger, it's better. What are your reflections on the year that's gone by, on this year, how has the corporate sourcing market in Europe evolved over the last year?
Okay, well, first of all, good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. First, maybe on the event, different city. I don't know if we're going to change the city every year. That would be a good idea, but very crowded, as you said. I think we almost double the size, or then 50% increase. It was sold out, and I think it tells about the interest on this corporate sourcing. And I think it's very important because I can see a lot of lively interest within the room, within the panel, but also outside the room, meeting customer, partners, and so on. And there's a lot of passionate discussion going around. For me, what strikes me the most since 1 year is twofold. One is the fact that our markets, our price of energy, has increased a lot in Europe, and that changed a little bit the perspective. At some stage, maybe it was not 1 year ago, but a couple of years ago, we are below 30 euro per megawatt hour for power in Germany. We are well above 50 now, and of course that changed the perspective.
In the UK as well, wholesale prices are going up.
Exactly.
And that's really changing the calculation for corporates. Actually.
Exactly. So that's the first thing. The second thing is together with this rise of wholesale market, we see prices of renewable production going down. And of course, you're kind of crossing the lines, at least on the spot basis, or let's say short-term maturity, and that changed the perspective. That changed the perspective a lot because you're coming from a world where people were thinking, it's good for communication, to be able to talk about, I can green my consumption, I can buy renewable power and so on. To look, yes, of course, it's still the case, but it makes sense economically, and that's a game changer for me. When it starts to make sense, then, the sky is the limit. So that's a big change that we've seen for 1 year. And this is why we have seen some of these corporate PPA being signed this year, being announced. So of course it's not true in all the countries, but there's clearly two areas, the Scandinavia area and in Spain, where you can find power which is extremely interesting in terms of price, with prices around 30, 35 in the Scandi, and price around 40, 45 for Spain. And that's price when spot is around 60, for example, for Spain.
Then it becomes very interesting.
Yeah.
But given those trends, those wholesale prices that are going up, those renewable prices that are going down, you, NG, are a utility. How are these trends changing your role in the market? People are talking about going from an offer utility to a demand-driven utility. Is that true for you guys at NG Global Energy Management as well?
Oh yeah, well, it's true for NG. It's true for NG Global Energy Management. We use, if we take the history of the company, we used to, building power station and so on, to be able to sell our power to. At that time, it was 20 years ago, maybe. I'm referring to. We are calling them users. That tells something. And we are going to a market or strategy, at least for us, where we are demand-driven. So what is important is not to push our power to the customer, it's really to pull from the customer their energy needs. So it's really to accompany our customer, to understand their needs. And again, we have to think power, but also gas, and to understand their needs and to pull for them the right offer that makes sense for them.
One size fits all doesn't work anymore.
No, not at all. No, not at all. The market are complex. We used also in terms of regulation to have a nice time where for an asset developer you were selling your power in a feed-in tariff for 20, 25 years, or you were able to get CFD mechanism for 20 or 25 years. Now, you know, you're living in a world where more and more you will have no subsidy, and basically you need to find the way to manage your risk. Huh?
And that's, you know, that's how the shape of your business is changing, but also the color of your business. You are becoming a greener and greener business. What proportion of NG's assets are now renewable assets?
Yeah. What is true is that NG has gone through a very big transformation plan for the past 3 years. Huh? We decided really to go to the energy transition, to be the leader of the energy transition. So we've sold quite a lot of assets. You know, is it on the oil and gas area? Is it on some thermal assets, especially for coal? So we are selling these assets, and we are investing in two types of assets. One is a renewable asset, so solar, wind, and hydro. And the second is gas contracted assets, because we believe that gas is really complementary to the energy transition. You know, we are going to live in a world where, of course, one problem that is posed by the wind and solar is the intermittency. The fact that, of course, it produces when there's wind or solar, and of course, you need to be able to adjust to the demand. And gas is a very, very good complementary way of adjusting to the demand. So that's something which is very important in terms of size. You know, I think the renewable assets of NG, you know, NG altogether is a bit above 100 gig of power production. And there's more than 1/4, not very far from 1/3 now, which is renewable.
1/3 of your assets are renewable.
Yeah.
That's really a huge transformation.
Yeah, and most of the assets that we are going to be, all the assets, in fact, that we'll be adding, will be either renewable, either gas, for the reason I gave before.
And so, one of the messages that we've been hearing here from the corporates at the event is actually that they want more and more not to just buy power as produced. They're looking for offers that give them something that's closer to baseload power, to meet the shape of their power demand as well. What potential do you think there is to combine solar and wind, and how much complementarity is there between solar and wind to be able to then offer something that is more akin to that baseload demand that they are seeking to fill?
Yeah. Well, first, what we have to recognize is this corporate PPA came from the US. Why so? Huh? Why so is because the regulation put the people into that type of transaction. Because in the US, what was elaborated, contrary to Europe, was to have a renewable power producer that will be bearing market risk and getting a premium through a tax credit. So that means that to develop your project, you needed to find some people being able, on a long-term basis, to take away the risk, the market risk from you. Now it's coming in Europe. It was not the case before. It's coming in Europe. So what happened with the US market and even the Europe market is the first bunch of corporate PPA where some, I would say, brave companies, consumer, who say, look, you know, I want to play the game. I want to be able to, by my consumption, to generate projects. So I will buy the power which is produced by the assets. But people are starting to realize that this is good, but the problem is sometimes the asset they produce when the customer doesn't produce, and sometimes they don't produce when he needs to consume. So what is true is
we knew all the time in the energy
exactly,
sector.
exactly.
But they need to learn those lessons.
And when it happens in reality, you know, that's different between living something and getting the theoretical idea of something. So when people have started to live that, in fact, to experience that, they say, okay, we've got to change a little bit. And in fact, when you think about it, it's a matter of how do you allocate the risk. Okay, you got when there's a consumer who is buying power produced by a renewable project as produced, basically most of the price risk, is it a flat price, is it profile risk, is it imbalance risk, is it volume risk, is taken by the consumer, the producer.
Corporate consumer, which ultimately is not the kind of, they're not used to those kind of risks,
exactly.
Right?
So now what we are seeing is a scheme whereby the allocation of risk is done a bit differently. Some of the risk will stay at the producer level or at the bank level, because let's not forget that these projects are highly leveraged and are financed by banks. Some risk will stay at the consumer level, especially what most of the GAFA are happy to live with is, to be able to offer.
Just to be clear for our listeners, so GAFA is Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple.
Exactly.
Yeah. The big tech companies.
So what they are comfortable with is to be able to commit themselves buying fixed price, 10 years, 15 years. But they want to get more and more away from the profile risk and the intermittency risk. And that's also where we play a role with NG, is to be able to transform a profile which is coming from renewable assets into a base load or into the load of the customer. So that's the first thing. The second thing, more specifically about your question, it is true that when you look at profile, if you look at wind and solar, they are quite complementary in terms of season and period in the day. So it's true, you're not going into a full base load by combining
of course not, but you could exploit that complementarity
exactly.
with an aggregated PPA.
Exactly, and that is what we are working on with NG, is to be able to deliver through combining assets much more base load or consumer load profile.
Yeah, but so far here in Europe, there's a lot of, there is a lot of interest in this corporate sourcing market in Europe. This is obviously a very successful event because of that. But the volumes of contracted PPAs in Europe are not huge yet. What do you think needs to be done to try and really build momentum in this market and really increase those volumes? For example, today we launched our resource declaration, where over 100 companies signed a declaration asking policymakers to really work to reduce those barriers. Do you think that's the answer? What do you think needs to be done to try and increase the volumes of corporate PPAs that are being signed here in Europe?
First of all, I think it comes with education, meaning, and we see, the room was totally full, maybe 800 people.
You educated 800 people.
We need to have people to understand what's going on, because it's really new for consumer. So the first thing I would say, and has nothing to do with regulation, it's education. What is happening? What does it mean as produced? What does it mean firm profile? What are the risks? Where are the risks allocated, and so on? So training. Understand, of course, the customer needs. So that's really the basis. Then, of course, we need some help from the regulators. I would say that today, the scheme is are pretty straightforward. I think one point I would insist, I will not list all of them, one point I would insist in terms of regulation is the cross-border. Because what you see in Europe, in fact, is there are some places in Europe where the renewable power is rather cheap, or at least very, very competitive economically. We are talking about the wind in Scandi, for example, solar in Spain. Well, of course, there's a demand for this power. The problem is, if this power stays in Scandi or stays in Spain, okay, it will serve a consumer in Scandi or in Spain. But if we can get access to long-term transmission capacity, we can export this power into CWE, into France, into the Netherlands, into Belgium, into Germany, and that would make quite a difference.
And final question, just before we finish, because we're running out of time. Yes, access to that interconnection capacity is very important, but if we look at other models like synthetic PPAs, we don't even need the interconnection capacity. We can do financial PPAs across borders. What do you think, what are the different models you think could help bring forward these cross-border PPAs more easily?
Yeah, we don't need to have the electron flowing, that's for sure. And by the way, to be able to follow an electron is not an easy task. I can tell you. Sometimes they go around and
also part of the education.
Exactly. So, but what is important is what you say, is to be able to have mechanism, even financial mechanism, because a lot of transmission in Europe are financial products, in fact, which are given by the TSO, which are auctioned, given. I wish they would be given. They are auctioned by the TSO to allow you to manage your risk link to the price, for example, between France and Germany, between Germany and the Netherlands, and so on. So what we need is these transmission rights, which are auctioned on a monthly and yearly basis, we need to have multi-year auction. We need to be able, and it can be, and it's not a problem at all, to have a financial product, but that will be auctioned for 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years. Therefore, what you can do is have an asset in a country and bring virtually, as you said, the electron to the place where the customer needs this electron.
Well, I think that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Edouard Neviaski. That's already a very clear ask for the TSOs, in fact, and a to-do list for everyone else. Thank you. So that was Edouard Neviaski, CEO of ENGIE Global Energy Management. I'm Sonia Dunlop, Senior Policy Advisor at Solar Power Europe, one of the organisers of the Resource 2018 event. Thank you very much for joining us. There'll be more Facebook Lives later today and tomorrow. Tune in. Thank you.
Thank you.